Ananjana-shalakaya Chakshurunmilitam yena tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobhishtam Stapitam yena bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Dadati Swapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Yuta Padakamalam Shri Gurum Vaishnavamsha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunatham Vitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padhan Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakam Vitamsha Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prishtaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swamin Niti Namine Namaste Saraswate Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Deshatarine He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Deenabandhu Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namastute Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Rishabhanu Sute Devi Namami Hari Priye Vancha Kalpatarubhesya Kripa Sindhubhya Evacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namah Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shrivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna. So welcome to the Manah Shiksha series every Friday, Saturday and Sunday morning. We have been discussing the last part of verse 3 commentary of His Holiness Bhakti Vigyan Goswami Maharaj. So I summarize what up till now we have discussed and then continue our discussion. If you remember, we discussed an entire whole class on the science of rasa. What is bhava and what is rasa? Many bhavas together combine and give rise to rasa. The one which is prominent is called as the stahi bhav. And that which stimulates the stahi bhav is vibhav, in which there is alamban and udipan, there is a vishalamban, there is a ashalamban. And then there is anubhavas, the satviki bhavas and the sanchari bhavas. So this whole science, Rupa Goswami has explained in the Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu. So we briefly touched upon it. And then we continued the discussion of what Maharaj is speaking, that the Srimad Bhagavatam can be understood by the lens of Srila Rupa Goswami's explanation of the science of rasa. The rasas of loving exchanges which were happening between Krishna's and Krishna's devotees, if we want to know that from the Bhagavatam, we have to understand Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu. So that was another theme of the pastimes mentioned, which are filled with rasa. And then Maharaj speaks about difference between material rasa and spiritual rasa. And the Lord is rasa. The Lord is raso vaisya. And we also discussed this difference while we discussed the Parthiva rasa and the Swaragaya rasa. And then Maharaj goes on to explain that one must give up damba and sahajism to attain real rasa. This rasa is very rare, like a diamond, and one cannot, just easily by some artificial means get it. One has to really practice the procedure given by Mahaprabhu and his associates by practicing bhakti, meticulously purifying the heart and not trying to imitate. And most important is one should give up dhamba, pride, which already Manashiksha verse 1 spoke about it. Then Maharaj goes on to explain that why Raghunath Das Goswami is mentioning that we should remember Swarupam Shirupam Sagana Iya Tasyagrajamapi. Early morning when we get up, we should remember, because they can give us access to this rasa. So they have experienced it and they give us this entrance into this rasa. That's why the first thing we should do is should take the names of the Vaishnavas when we get up in the morning. So this is where we ended our discussion in the last class. So we'll continue from here. Now the last theme, paragraphs from 89 to 107, Maharaj gives the definition of how Rupa Goswami defines sadhana bhakti in the Bhakti Rasamrit Sindhu. And he goes more into the components of rasa, which is the last theme in text 3, which we are going to discuss today. Now, I thought it is apt that we discuss actually the definition of Bhakti Rasamrit Sindhu from Bhakti Rasamrit Sindhu. Actually the definition of sadhana bhakti from Bhakti Rasamrit Sindhu, so that we can be equipped with this understanding and then go into Maharaj commentary. So I am just taking a short detour. We are going to Rupa Goswami's Bhakti Rasamrit Sindhu, Eastern Division, second wave, definition of sadhana bhakti. So this is what I am going to discuss. This is not part of the essay of Maharaj, but we will study this definition and then go into the commentary. Okay, now let us go to this. This is the Eastern Division 1. This is the second wave, which is sadhana bhakti. Samanya bhakti is first wave. Sadhana bhakti is second wave. Bhava bhakti is third wave, and prema bhakti is fourth wave. There are 4 waves in the Eastern Division, and this is the first verse. And Rupa Goswami says, Sa bhakti sadhanam bhava prema cheti tridodita. There are 3 types, cheti tridodita, of bhakti, sa bhakti. That bhakti, which is defined in the first wave as uttama bhakti. So sa means that bhakti. That means uttama bhakti or pure devotion. That is of 3 types, sadhana, bhava, and prema. So uttama bhakti is shuddha bhakti. Please remember this. Uttama bhakti is shuddha bhakti. So this sadhana bhakti also should be shuddha bhakti. There is shuddha sadhana bhakti, shuddha bhava bhakti, shuddha prema bhakti. So the shuddha has to be applied here. Now I have a question to you all. Rupa Goswami says there are 3 types of bhakti. And my question is, are there 3 stages of bhakti or there are 3 types? Rupa Goswami says there are 3 stages of bhakti. We speak about stages, right? So why does Rupa Goswami say there are 3 types and not 3 stages? What is the reason? Anyone would like to throw some light on this? I know it is a difficult question, but you all can try. Rupa Goswami says there are 3 types of bhakti and not 3 stages. You go through the stage of sadhana bhakti, and when sadhana bhakti matures, you go to the next stage, that is bhava bhakti, and then you go to the next stage, that is prema bhakti. But he says it is 3 types and not 3 stages. Why? Yes, Birendra Yadav Prabhuji.
Hare Krishna Prabhu, Dandot Pranam. Prabhu, there may be case ki a devotee may not, these stages may not be applicable to all the devotees. Maybe some devotee, he may be directly in the bhava, and maybe some exalted devotee may be in prema stage directly. That could be case, I feel.
Yes, exactly. Some might not practice sadhana and be directly bestowed bhava. And in the Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu, there is a mention of a lady who danced whole night for the pleasure of Jagannath and immediately attained bhava. She did not practice any sadhana. So she did not go through the stage of sadhana. So that's why he says that there are 3 types of bhakti and not 3 stages of bhakti. Excellent. Now, please hear this carefully and try to understand. And many devotees might be first time, coming across this. So this is Jiva Goswami's commentary. That Uttama Bhakti is now considered in 3 divisions. Sadhana Bhakti, Uttama Bhakti or Shuddha Bhakti. For clear understanding, though actually it should be understood, there are only 2 divisions, sadhana and sadhya. So there are only 2 divisions, sadhana and sadhya, but it is considered in 3 divisions. Now, what is the reason? We will go into that. Now, note, bhava cannot be considered within sadhana since it contains a direct realization of the Lord, which is the goal of sadhana. The goal of sadhana bhakti is bhava. That's why bhava cannot be considered within sadhana. This is the first reason. Second, in bhava, there is direct realization of the Lord. Thus, it should be classed as sadhya. So, bhava should be classed as sadhya. That's why the definition of sadhana bhakti is also kriti sadhya ave sadhya. Sa sadhana bida. The sadhana bhakti by which you attain sadhya. So, sadhya is bhava bhakti. So, bhava bhakti should be classed as sadhya. Thus, there are only 2 broad classifications, sadhana and sadhya. However, bhava should be distinguished from prema, sneha, and other more intense forms of bhakti. So, there is prema bhakti, and within prema, there are high levels of intensity of bhaktis which only in spiritual bodies are manifested, like sneha, pana, raga, anuraga, bhava, mahabhava. So, bhava is distinguished from prema and other intense forms of bhakti because there still exist impurities in bhava. Please remember this. There are impurities in bhava. And the second reason is rasa does not manifest fully in bhava. So, these are the 2 reasons bhava cannot be classed into sadhya. Bhava is distinguished from prema. Therefore, bhava is placed in a separate category from prema, even though they may both be considered sadhya. So, although there are 2 broad divisions, sadhana and sadhya, still there are 3 divisions, Rupa Goswami is saying, and Jiva Goswami is resolving this whole conflict. And that's why his commentary is called as the Durgama Sangamini Tika, resolving the difficult. So why Rupa Goswami has classified into 3? And I would like to know if devotees have heard why bhava is categorized separately from prema, although both fall in sadhya. Who will answer this? Tirthpad Prabhuji.
Hare Krishna Prabhu, Dandak Pranam.
Yes.
Prabhuji, as you told Prabhuji, there is impurity.
Okay. The first reason, because there are still some impurities. First reason. Second,
rasa cannot be fully manifested, not fully manifested in bhava stage.
Yeah, rasa is not fully manifest. So that's why it is classed as a separate category. Okay, so that's why there are 3 types of bhakti. Excellent, excellent. Okay, now I put this in the chart. Uttama bhakti. Type 1 is sadhana bhakti. Within sadhana, there is Vaidhi and Raghunaga. Further, Rupa Goswami will define Vaidhi and sadhana. Type 2 is bhava bhakti. And type 3 is prema. And within prema, there are, pranaya, sneha, raga, anuraga, mana, bhava is also there. And then that bhava is different. Huh? 1 second. Bhava Bhava and Mahabhava. So although both are Sadhya Bhakti, Bhava Bhakti and Prema Bhakti are Sadhya, still it is a separate category because of these reasons which we discussed. Okay, I hope this is clear. Now, further we go to the commentary of Jiva Goswami. The second type, Sadhya Bhakti, called Harda Rupa Bhakti. Harda Rupa is that Bhakti in which the influence of the heart, the emotions of the Atma becomes prominent. The word Harda means heart and soul. It is used instead of Atma to indicate the emotional aspect of the soul. So the second type, Sadhya Bhakti, is called as Harda Rupa. Because the influence of the heart means now here the emotions of the soul, the emotional aspect of the soul. They become more prominent. And that's why sometimes it is called as Harda Rupa. The word Bhakti is used to describe this type also. This terminology is used in Bhagavatam. So Bhagavatam also uses this terminology. Now where it is used? Bhaktya sanjayataya bhaktya vibhrit utfullakam tanum. They possess bodies agitated by ecstasy caused by sadhya bhakti. Here also it is used as bhakti only. The word is used as bhakti only. But here bhakti is sadhya bhakti. That sadhana bhakti gives rise to sadhya bhakti, produced from sadhana bhakti. Bhaktya sanjayataya bhaktya. So the first word here, bhaktya, refers to sadhana bhakti, gives rise to bhava bhakti, where there is utfulakam tanum, where there is ecstasy. The bodies are agitated by ecstasy. So just the term bhakti is used. Now in the Bhagavatam, there are many verses where the term bhakti is used, but we have to study very carefully and find out whether that term bhakti is referring to sadhana bhakti, bhava bhakti, or prema bhakti. We should be very careful. Sadhya Rup or Harda Rup bhakti has 5 types: bhava, prema, pranaya, sneha, and rag. So the sadhya has 5 types, he says. Bhava, prema, second. Pranaya, sneha, raga, 5. Total, these are 5. I hope you're getting it. Now, further, Jiva Goswami says, in Ujjwal Mani, 3 more types are mentioned: Mana, Anuraga, and Mahabhav. Thus, there are 8 types of Sadha Bhakti. So, Sadha Bhakti is of 8 types. Now, here you can see Bhava Bhakti is also Sadha Bhakti. 1, Prema. 2, Pranaya. 3, within Prema there is intensity where there is Pranaya. 3, Sneha, pure affection. Raga, Raga is anger out of love. Anuraga, and then, Mana is anger out of. Raga is deep attachment. Anuraga is deeper attachment. Bhava is, this is within Prema and higher stages. And then there is a Mahabhav. And Mahabhav Sarupani, Srimati Radha Thakurani. So these are total Sadhya Bhaktis are 8 types. There are 8 types. So there are 8 types of Sadhya Bhakti. Thus, the 2 types mentioned, Bhava and Prema, are only representative of the 8 types. So, more details of all these different others are not given. They are only 2 are only discussed, Bhava and Prema. The other types are not mentioned in this categorization of Bhakti into 3 types because at the end of the 4th wave of the Eastern division, dealing with Prema Bhakti, it is said, Premna eva vilasatvad Vairalyam sadhakeshvapi atra snehadayo bheda vivicya nahi shamsita. There is rarity of prema. Prema eva viralam among those who have practiced sadhana bhakti. Sadhakeshvapi, because of its playful nature, vilasatvat. Thus, sneha and other types of sadhya bhakti, atra snehadayo bheda, have not been analyzed or discussed at this point. Vivicya nahi samstita. So Rupa Goswami himself just in general defines Prema Bhakti in the 4th division. And he doesn't go into Mana, Raga, Anuraga and all, because even if one practices sadhana bhakti and attains sadhya, still he has got a material body, although that material body is completely purified. But these higher levels of ecstasy, this body cannot sustain it. Only when he gets a spiritual body in the spiritual world or in Bhaum Vrindavan when he is born, then he can experience these higher levels of sneha, mana, anuraga, raga, mahabhava and all. So that is why he has not analyzed or discussed here. That is what the point Rupa Goswami makes and Jiva Goswami is clarifying. Okay, I will just now take Vishwanath Chakravarti's commentary and then stop for questions. Let there be only 2 types of bhakti, sadhana and sadhya. Bhava should be included in sadhya bhakti. Why is it necessary to have 3 types? The answer is all as follows. Later it will be said. Utpanna rataya samyan nairvigyanyam anupagata Krishna sakshat krito yogya sadhaka parikirtita. Those are called practitioners, sadhaka, who have developed rati for Krishna. Remember, although one has developed rati, utpanna rataya, rati is bhava, still they are called as practitioners and are qualified to see Krishna directly. Krishna sakshat krito yogya, but have not completely extinguished the anarthas. Samyak nirvigyam anupagata. So the anarthas in the form of aparads are still there, traces. Minute traces are there. That's why that is the reason here. In spite of the fact that bhava or rati has appeared, unpanna rataya, the obstacles have not been completely dissipated. Such persons are therefore classed as sadhakas, not having extinguished all obstacles. Samyak means not completely. Means that there still remains a trace of some serious aparad, because the effects of aparad are very strong and long lasting. So note this point and how important it is for sadhakas to avoid aparads, because these aparads create problem even when one has attained bhava stage, and the effects of aparad are also long lasting and very strong and they don't go. So how careful the sadhaka should be while practicing sadhana bhakti not to commit offenses. In this condition, even with a trace of aparad that generates suffering, sadhya bhakti cannot appear. Because there is a trace of aparad, there is suffering, there is a slight subtle suffering, and that's why prema bhakti cannot appear. The qualities of siddha bhakti, which has sadhya bhakti, are described as follows in the same section. Now, this is the definition of sadhya bhakti, that is prema. Avigyata kila klesha sada krishna shrita kriya siddhyasyu santata prema saukyasasvadana parayana. Those who experience no suffering at all, avigyata akhila klesha, who perform all actions while taking shelter of Krishna, sada Krishna ashrita kriya, and who always taste the happiness of continuous prema, satata, santata, prema, saukya, asvadana, parayana, are known as the perfected devotees, siddhyasu. So these are called as siddhas. And akhila klesh, all the suffering is destroyed, even the traces of aparad don't remember. Therefore, bhava bhakti cannot be included in sadhya bhakti. However, by more means it can be included in sadhana bhakti, because in this section, which defines sadhana bhakti, the goal of sadhana bhakti is described as bhava bhakti. So it cannot be included within sadhana bhakti also. Therefore, it cannot be included in sadhana bhakti, since the goal of bhava bhakti is not to produce bhava. Thus, it should be considered proper to classify bhakti into 3 types and not 2. The goal of sadhana bhakti is to produce bhava. It's not that bhava bhakti will produce bhava. Okay, so this I'm just going through so that we are now ready to discuss what Maharaj is going to now speak about the definition of sadhana bhakti. Okay, do you have any questions of this definition of 3 types of bhakti? Yes, Rasparani Mataji.
Prabhuji, Hare Krishna, Dandavat Pranam. My question is that when you said that aparad the effects of aparad can be long lasting. So the most important we try to take care of all the aparads when we are dealing with devotees and all. But the aparads which are not in our control is when we are chanting and we cannot concentrate on the holy name. So and we may be, at least when I'm talking about myself, we may be in bhakti for years together, but still we keep on committing aparad. Every day we resolve that we are going to concentrate on the holy name and it doesn't happen. So in such cases, what is the fate, like when we are...
Yes, it's a very, very important question. It's a very, very important question. So, Prabhupada mentions the solution in Srimad Bhagavatam 7, 5, 23, 24, 25. Shravanam Kirtanam Vishnu Smaranam Pada Sevanam. That verse. Please read that verse. And the purport to Kirtanam. It's a very long purport. But I'll summarize what Prabhupada says, that Kirtanam means chanting the holy names. And Prabhupada speaks about the glory of the holy name. And then Prabhupada emphasizes that one should chant the holy name without committing the 10 offenses. And then he lists the 10 offenses. And after that, the paragraph is very, very important. Prabhupada says there is no way one can atone for these 10 offenses. The only way is one should constantly chant and clear this Namaprad stage. And then one gradually makes advancement. That is the Namabha stage. In the Namabha stage, the advancement begins. And then one is situated on the transcendental platform, and then one can take Shuddha Nam and attain love of Godhead and go back to the spiritual world. So Namaprad stage is very long. Progress is extremely meager. In Namabha stage, the progress is gradual. Please remember that. It's not fast, it's gradual. So that is why one should avoid the 10 offenses. And just like when one commits a Vaishnava aparad, one should submit to the Vaishnava and beg forgiveness and get his mercy by serving him in a way which is favorable to him. Similarly, one should very attentively chant the holy names, and the chitta will wander. And that's why one has to offer prayers to Nam Prabhu. And this is a meditation which one should do on a regular basis so that we can come out of this Namaprad stage. So that is what is the solution. We should recognize it first and start working on it. Is it okay, Mataji, for now?
Yes, Prabhuji, it is Bhagavatam 7.5, right?
7, 5, 23 to 25. In that
Okay.
specifically, Kirtanam. You have to refer Kirtanam there.
Okay. Thank you, Prabhuji. Yes, Prabhuji.
And there are glorifications of the holy name given in Namastakam by Rupa Goswami, and Prabhupada also quotes some verses. So that's how one should be very careful and attentive. Kintu adarat anudinam. Very carefully one should, with great respect, chant that Krishna is there in front of me, sitting and watching me. In fact, it is said that when one takes a name, Krishna's attention is drawn to that devotee. Just meditate on this. That, when I'm chanting, Krishna's attention is, Krishna's mind is fixed on me. So then how much I should put my attention on him? So this is the kind of meditation, and regularly one should attend japa retreats and understand what is Namaprad and work on it. That's the only solution. Okay, now let us come to this concept of Maharaj defining sadhana bhakti. So I went into the definition. I actually did not define sadhana bhakti, but why there are three types. Okay, now let us go to the Maharaj discussion here. Now let us return to rasa and the theory of rasa and how the mystical experience of rasa comes. Rupa Goswami gives the definition of a sadhaka in Bhakti Rasamrit Sindhu 276 in terms of the elements of rasa or mystical experience. He says that there are two kinds of devotees, siddhas, devotees who have attained perfection, and sadhakas. Now he's quoting the same verse which Vishwanath Chakravarti quoted. Utpanna rataya samyan nairvignam anupagataha Krishna sakshat krato yogya sadhaka parikirtita. Maharaj is saying sadhaka parikirtita. Sadhaka parikirtita. A person is praised as a sadhaka if utpanna rata samyak. If he has fully awakened his love for Krishna. Samyak means completely. But nairvigyam anupagata. But there are still some obstacles in the way. And what those obstacles are? They are aparadhas. Vignam means they are not fully yet destroyed. Nairvigyam. Vigna vinashaka. Say na Narsimhadev. Krishna sakshat krito yoga, but still he is yogya. Yogya means he is worthy. Actually, at Bhava Bhakti, Krishna gives him darshan. He is yogya to take darshan of Krishna. Means sometimes in his mystical experience, he can see Krishna. Can you imagine that at the stage of Bhava Bhakti? And still there are traces. Krishna Sakshat Krito, to directly see Krishna, such a person is called Sadhaka. Sadhaka Parikirtita. He is not called as a Siddha. Please remember that. So I hope now this all gets clarified with our previous discussion on these three types of bhakti. Next paragraph. In Chaitanya Charitamrita, Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami says that the Sarup Lakshan, essential definition, the essence of sadhana is Shravana, Kirtanam. Shravanadi, everything that we do is inspired by hearing, and everything that is triggered by our hearing about Krishna is sadhana. Sadhana means the Navida Bhakti. Next paragraph. Now he says that the Tatashta Lakshana, the secondary characteristics of sadhana, is that it gives prema. Why is the main feature of sadhana Shravana Kirtanam? And the secondary characteristic is that it gives prema. Very interesting question, right? It is the main feature because the essence of sadhana is to hear and glorify Krishna. Why prema or attainment of prema is a secondary feature of sadhana is because it sometimes gives prema and sometimes it does not at that stage. At that stage, it does not give prema. That's why at sadhana level, sadhakas are not experiencing prema. Although in the beginning stages, we experience it. So sadhana, that's why considered as a primary characteristic, and prema is considered as a secondary because it might give prema. So devotees have experience, we might sometime during the festival come and do very nice service as the devotees or the spiritual master directs us, and we feel love of God in our heart. So because we have executed the limbs of sadhana, we have engaged the senses in Krishna service in a favorable way, Krishna gives us the experience of that bliss, and we experience certain type of prema, certain degree of prema. So that's why it is considered as a secondary feature. I hope this point is very clear. Okay, next paragraph. Rupa Goswami explains that we perform sadhana as we chant the holy name, we hear and preach. When we tell others about Krishna, when we sing the holy names loudly, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Ram Ram, Hare Hare, our bhava or attachment to Krishna gradually deepens. It happens gradually. The essence of our practice is that the attachment that dawned at the very first moment of our start of devotional service in the form of Shraddha, faith, completely transformed our lives. So that first awakening of faith, where we become attached to Krishna's, chanting Krishna's name, Krishna's devotees, the deities, all that happened, that initial awakening of that faith. The word Shraddha in Sanskrit comes from the word Shrad, which means truth. It is said that one of the functions of the intellect, our buddhi, is the ability to recognize truth. In the third canto of the Srimad Bhagavatam, Kapil Dev states that intelligence has the function called Nishchay. Nishchay means that at a certain point I recognize the truth, but not by any logical process. This is called as Nishchay. I understand this is truth. Obtaining Shraddha is when suddenly the veil is removed from our eyes. We realize that there is God, and we need no evidence whatsoever. We suddenly understand that He exists because it cannot be otherwise. Faith is precisely this feeling. Maharaj is going into a depth of what exactly is faith. Actually, there is a faith of the mind and the faith of the soul. Faith is beyond the senses, mind, and the intellect. So faith of the mind is that we have doubts that God exists. But when we have that faith of the soul that God exists, that is Nishchay. That is Nishchay. It is not because that there is some logical chain that has led me to this understanding, or because somebody told me something, but simply because it cannot be otherwise. That's firm conviction which comes in the heart that Krishna exists, God exists. Srila Prabhupada once in his morning walk was with his disciples, and he asked, what is the proof that God exists? And his disciples who were in the morning walk gave various answers. And then Prabhupada gave his answer. Anyone knows what was the answer of Prabhupada? Or what was the answer of his disciples also? Anyone knows? Raise your hands. What was the answer Prabhupada gave? Anyone knows? Anyone knows what was the answer Prabhupada gave? So his disciples quoted many verses because, it is mentioned in the Bhagavad Gita, they were quoting many other verses. Prabhupada, did not accept it, although it is true. And Prabhupada said, it is because the ecstasy we feel in chanting Hare Krishna Mahamantra. And that's why we are convinced that Krishna exists. So that's what Maharaj is trying to explain, that feeling of ecstasy, that is faith. It is not because, we read, I can recognize God, I can see this truth inside, and I fully recognize God by my intelligence or buddhi. This is Nishcha. So we must have not seen God. Those who are in Bhava stage have the adhikar to Krishna Sakshat Yoga Krito, But we have seen the hand of God. And that, in that conviction, that faith, that is that faith. And that is that feeling. When we obtain Shraddha, we are overwhelmed by an extraordinary exaltation that sometimes lasts for years. It lasts for years. Recently, someone wrote to me saying, I have been chanting Hare Krishna for 2 years, and it seems that the Utsamai, the first ecstasy, is not over yet. When will it be over? So I mentioned that initially, Utsa is enthusiasm, and enthusiasm, in English, you can, you can give an equivalent to love. The initial love we feel towards Krishna, the beginning stages of our devotion. That's why we are at the beginning, at a experience of prema we have. So this Utsamaya stage continues as we take up initially to the practices of chanting Hare Krishna, and the devotee is very enthusiastic to serve the Vaishnavas. If the Vaishnava tells, please come here, he comes running, get me some water. He goes, rushes and runs and gets the water. He's experiencing that Utsamaya stage. And this continues sometimes for a long time. And why this comes down? Why this Utsamaya stage of this ecstasy in serving the Vaishnavas, in chanting, which we all experienced in the beginning stages, why does it come down? What is the reason? Who will answer this? One. Okay, Tirtpat Prabhuji. What is the reason?
Hare Krishna Prabhu, Dandat Prabhu. Because initially stages there are no aparads, but while practicing sadhana bhakti, we start doing aparads.
Okay, little more clarification.
Initially, while doing sadhana bhakti, Prabhu, actually we don't know what is aparad, and so normally we don't like offend devotees and do
Yes,
aparads.
the reason is that we don't offend devotees. The aparads are there. Deep, samskars of aparad from many previous lives are there. Papa and punya is also there. But we don't find faults with Vaishnavas and we don't commit Vaishnava aparad. And that's why we are able to experience that ecstasy. And as we associate, familiarity breeds contempt, and then, this ecstasy comes down, and then the anarthas all start springing up. So Bhaktivinoda Thakur in his article Bhaktya Loka mentions that there is a stage of Utsamai where there is initial faith, and then he says Nishta, firm faith, and then Bhava directly. So he completely neglects all the other intermediate stages. He says if one can maintain that Utsamai stage on a steady level, he can directly attain Nishta, he says. And that's very rare to do that because there are impurities in the heart, and that's why we go up and down. We go through Ghana and Parala, and then we go through the Vishaya Sangara, Niyamakshama, all these stages. But if one maintains the Utsamai stage steadily, then he can just surpass all these stages and just be on firm faith, Nishta, and then make quick progress. It's very rare to do that. If a person tries to avoid offenses and serve the Vaishnavas, this ecstasy or euphoria can last infinitely and ultimately will lead us all the way to Prema. So this is what I already mentioned. I did not know that, Maharaj. So we should avoid offenses and serve Vaishnavas, and you can continuously experience ecstasy and surpass all these stages. This is a secret here. The entire path from the very beginning to the very end is infused with ecstasy, and we obtain the taste of this experience of ecstasy at the level of Shraddha. So at the level of Shraddha only we experience it. If we practice Shravanam Kirtanam, we must deepen this ecstasy, this bhava towards Krishna. Okay, next paragraph. If you have any questions, you can raise your hands. I received another letter that said, when I met the devotees, I became happy. I tried to understand why I became happy. This is the way the mind works. The intellect understands something and then the mind starts interpreting it, asking why, how, and what is happening. The letter continued. At a certain point, I realized that I have suddenly found the meaning of my existence, that previously everything was pointless. This ecstasy comes because of the fact that God is in our lives, that He loves us, that He is a personality and wants our love and nothing else. Krishna doesn't want anything else. He just wants our love. So read Patram Pushpam Phalam Toyam commentary of Srila Prabhupada. Krishna doesn't want, any ingredients because everything belongs to him. But the attitude which we buy the ingredients, the attitude which we cut the vegetables, the attitude with which we cook as an offering to Krishna, all should be done with the attitude of love, Prabhupada says. And this is what Bhaktya, twice it is mentioned in that 9.26. Krishna wants our love and nothing else. He is not some evil despot who sends everyone to hell if they do not love him. This ecstasy can and must last and deepen in the course of our sadhana. Everything we do is only for the purpose of deepening this ecstasy. When this ecstasy reaches the stage of attachment, asakti, or the stage of bhava, it is called stahi bhav and it becomes permanent. So this ecstasy, what we are experiencing at the stage of Shraddha or the Utsama Ishtara stage, if it continues if you don't commit offenses and serve the Vaishnavas and happily you do that, then it will come to the stage of asakti and bhava, then it becomes stahi bhava. At the end of asakti and the beginning of bhava, our ecstasy becomes permanent and which is called as stahi bhav. Here is now the definition of stahi bhav, and I hope you also now know the definition of that bhava which is among all the bhavas, that which is prominent. And which are the stahi bhavas? Anyone knows? Raise your hands. Which are the different types of stahi bhavas? And you have to name them. Which are the different types of stahi bhavas? What about others? Krishnapad Prabhuji.
Prabhuji, I am driving at highway, so not able
On the way to office. Okay. Reena Mataji, yes.
Hare Krishna, Dandavat Pranam Prabhuji. Vibhav, Anubhav, Sanchari Bhav.
No. They are not. They are other ingredients of bhavas which combine with stahi bhav to give rise to rasa. Which are the different stahi bhavas? Lakshmi Narasimha Prabhuji, yes.
I'll just give it a try, Prabhuji. Shanta, Dasya, Sakhya, Vatsalya, Madhurya.
Yes.
These are the five prominent
these are the stahi bhavas. Yes, correct. At the level of bhajan kriya, it is sporadic. It is like a sinusoid, a curve having the form of a sine wave. Now it is here, and the next moment it is gone. Moreover, most of the sinusoid is below zero. Sometimes the sinusoid wave elevates us somewhere, then again, bang. This is called anishtita bhajan kriya, when we have no stability. When we reach stability, our bhakti is somewhere on the zero mark in the form of a flat line. Nashtaprayeshu bhadreshu nityam bhagavata sevaya bhagavati uttama shloke bhaktir bhavati naishtiki. This bhaktir bhavati naishtiki is like that flat line. You're not now going up and down, up and down. Most of the time, sometimes you're up. When the festival comes, we feel happy. And most of the time, the curve is down only, battling with the senses and all that. So it is anishtita bhajan kriya. It is a smooth zero bhakti, and now and then some small explosions of ecstasy overwhelm us, and again there is a flat line where we feel good, calm, and pure. At the level of ruchi, the ecstasy gets stronger, and we slightly rise above zero. So now the graph curve is going now up a little at the stage of ruchi. But at the level of bhava or emotion, love of Godhead, the ecstasy becomes a permanent stahi bhav. Rupa Goswami explains how Sahi Bhav becomes manifest externally. Now, how does Sahi Bhav manifest externally? Stahi Bhav means permanent Bhav or permanent love for Krishna and is the main component of Rasa, if you remember. If the Stahi Bhav is Vatsalya, then the Vibhav, which is Vishaya Alamban, which will be Krishna, it will be Krishna in the form of seeing his son. And there is Vatsalya Ras. And the Vatsalya Ras will, manifest. At the level of Bara, there are nevertheless things to help this ecstasy manifest itself externally. There are things which manifest externally. What is it? One of the elements when the Sthai Bhav turns into Rasa is Vibhav. Vibhav is that which stimulates the Sthai Bhav. Rupa Goswami explains that Vibhav consists of three things: Vishaya Alamban, Ashaya Alamban, and Uddipan. Now, please, let's go back. When we discussed, the components or the science of Rasa. Yes. Vibhav has this Vishay Alamban, Ashaya Alamban, and Uddipan, which actually, give rise to Bhava, Sthayi Bhava, whatever it is. I hope you're clear about these terminologies now. It is sometimes said that Krishna is Uddipan, sometimes it is said that Krishna is Vishaya Alamban, and sometimes Krishna is Ashaya Alamban. So, Krishna is Uddipan. Krishna, wearing the beautiful peacock feather or the flute, anything which is with Krishna or related to Krishna, the dark moonlight, which becomes a Uddipan, agitation for the gopis to relish Madhuri Ras. So they all act as Uddipans. Within Krishna's body, the Uddipans were then there and related to Krishna also. And the devotee is Ashaya Alamban, the Krishna is Vishaya Alamban. And similarly, vice versa, for Krishna, the Vishaya is the devotee. And in Krishna's heart, there is love for him. Krishna has love for that devotee. So both ways they work. But Bhakti Rasamrit Sindhu discusses from the devotee's perspective. Krishna is the Vishay and the devotee who has love is the Ashray. But both are there because love means both sides. It is also sometimes said that the devotees are Uddipan, sometimes Ashaya-alamban, and sometimes the devotees are Vishaya-alamban. However, Rupa Goswami means a very simple thing. Ashray means one with whom love rests. Vishay means the object of love, and Uddipan means of love, something that reminds us of Krishna. Uddipans are stimulus, and I call them as spiritual sense objects. Material sense objects, they stimulate and they agitate our heart. Similarly, there are spiritual sense objects. When we hear about Krishna, see the picture of him as the object of love, or when we hear the description of Krishna as the object of love, as the Vishay, the one who is love, then love or rasa can awaken in us. When we hear how a devotee loves, Ashaya Alamban, or one who carries the love within, then rasa can awaken to us. Both it can happen. When we see a devotee who is Prema Bhakti, he is carrying love for Krishna, and when we hear about such pure devotees, love for also awakens in us. When we hear of some things associated with Krishna, they are incentives or uddipans that awaken love or the experience of rasa. So we know that famous story. So second. Heavily raining here. We know that Mukunda, who was a Vaidya, had gone to see the king, and the king's servants were fanning the king with the chamar, peacock feather. The moment he saw the peacock feather, he remembered Krishna, his love for Krishna awakened in the heart. He went into ecstasy and he fell down there. So this is what Uddipans can do for us. Uddipans can do for us. When Rupa Goswami says that there are two kinds of love carriers who are capable of generating the experience of rasa in our hearts, he means that a love carrier can be either a siddha or a sadhaka. It can be a siddha or a sadhaka. We can either hear about how Lalita and Vishaka and Rup Manjari associate with Krishna, or we can listen about how a sadhaka associates with Krishna. I think it is a sadhaka, not a sadhaka. A sadhaka associates with Krishna. By listening about a sadhaka, we begin to experience rasa. When we hear how the sadhaka loves Krishna, rasa is awakened in our hearts. Therefore, Rupa Goswami says that the sadhaka has already reached the level where his love for Krishna has become fully manifest and he is eligible to directly associate with Krishna. However, at the same time, there is some obstacle in his way. There is some obstacles in the form of aparadhas. And when we hear how he overcomes those obstacles on his way to Krishna, rasa appears in us. Our love for Krishna, our Stahi Bhav, the dormant love for Krishna starts manifesting itself. Next paragraph. When we see that a devotee does what a devotee does out of love for Krishna, now if there's a parenthesis, a devotee who has reached the highest level of attachment and who is ready to see Krishna, how he or she is overcoming the obstacles standing in his way, ready to sacrifice everything. When we remember this, attachment to Krishna or the experience of rasa comes to us. How Prabhupada overcame the obstacle of reaching America by Jalduta. When we hear this pastime, especially when we read the Lilamrita, we experience deep attachment to Prabhupada and we are experiencing his ecstasies. We thus understand another meaning of the verse when Raghunath Das Goswami says, remember clearly Rupa Goswami. Because who is Rupa Goswami? Is he a siddha or a sadhaka? He is a siddha playing the role of a sadhaka. He is a sadhaka vesha in the body of a sadhaka. He runs around Vrindavan and cries, Hey Radhe Vrajadevi ke cha lalite, Hey Nand Suno Puta, where are you? I cannot see you. We think of Sanatana Goswami and we think of the obstacles he had to overcome in order to come to Lord Chaitanya. Of Lord Chaitanya seeing him and his expensive chadar, of the Lord telling him, give away this expensive blanket, and how he nearly got killed in an inn by an owner, and how Hussain Shah sent him to the prison. He overcame that obstacles out of his love for Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. We read about this and we see how love manifests itself in the pure devotees. Last two paragraphs. When Rupa Goswami explains Ashraya Alamban, he explains how a pure devotee loves Krishna and how he responds to him. Srila Prabhupada's love for Krishna manifested in his renunciation of everything, including his wife and going out to preach, in the fact that he carried the order of his spiritual master in his heart throughout his life, and that the order of his spiritual master was a thread upon which Srila Prabhupada's entire life was strung. That was the manifestation of his love for Krishna. What should happen in our hearts when this inspires us? Love for Krishna should come, and experience of rasa should appear. That's why Leelamrit, when we read, we experience actually rasa, which we might not understand sometimes. Raghunath Das Goswami says, "Oh mind, if you want to attain attachment to Krishna, then constantly remember." He says, remember the sadhaka devotees who have spent all their lives in Vrindavan and who are willing to go through anything for the quest of God. Remember Shri Rupa, Swarupa, and Sanatan Goswami, who have given up everything in order to come to God, and all the other devotees who can generate in our hearts the same attachment and cause tears to come to our. So that's why Smara Nityam Sputam Nityam Premna Hu Swarupam Shri Rupam Tasya Agrajam Api. So this is how Maharaj, based on the science of rasa and the concept of rasa, how the sadhakas also can experience rasa if we remember Swarupam Shri Rupam Tasya Agrajam Api. That's how Maharaj ends this whole lecture on verse 3. So tomorrow we'll begin verse 4. Any questions, any clarification anyone has? Okay, so we'll stop here. Tomorrow we are beginning text 4, the obstacles. The gross obstacles in order to attain this rasa, or in order to give up pride and attain deeper attachment. What are the gross obstacles will be spoken in text 4? Then subtler obstacles in text 5, more subtler in text 6, and more subtlest in text 7. This is a very important section which we are going to begin, and we'll begin that from tomorrow. Thank you very much. Srila Prabhupada ki Jai. Shri Raghunath Das Goswami ki Jai. Shri Manah Shiksha ki Jai. Yes, Virendra Yadav Prabhuji, any questions?
Hare Krishna Prabhu, just one small question here. When we say we must remember Rupam, Sri Rupam.
Maybe you can record the question and send it to me. We'll wind up now.
Right.